Good morning, everybody. It is the DeFi Crypto Alliance show where we talk about real estate and crypto here. We're doing our best to help all of our fellow investors understand what we feel like is the biggest opportunity over the next few years, that being cryptocurrency. So, welcome. You're at the right place at the right time. We're pumped to have you this morning. We're pumped about Pulse Chain. We'll talk about some of the just remarkable opportunities there this morning. But before we do that, of course, Corey, take it away.
Absolutely. Corey Geary here, and just so blessed and honored to be with all you guys on this cryptocurrency wealth creation journey, and where we're going to use real estate on the back end as wealth preservation. As you guys can see, have a makeshift streaming studio made up here in my room here in Puerto Rico. So it's just going to be an absolute blast. I'm enjoying Puerto Rico so far. The weather's been great. We've had some overcast. It's been about 75, and probably going to go meet up with some Hexicans later today. So it's going to be a great time. Yeah. So
it's just, it's only 75. I thought it'd be hotter.
Yeah. Well, it's been overcast. That's why.
Okay.
It's
okay.
been
Nice, man.
It has been nice since I've been here. We'll see how long it lasts. You know, it is humid out there. So, like when you step outside, it has that almost like, it's like
overwhelming.
Oh my gosh. It's like literally stepping into water. It's thick. So I can see how the summers here could be a little bit on the brutal side. But man, I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. Like, it don't scare me.
This is nothing.
It don't scare me.
No, that's awesome. Well, cool. I figure there's a lot of questions we've been seeing on Twitter and social media in general.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen a lot of them from the guys in our mastermind, and so I figure we jump in and talk about the yield farms, talk about both the upside potential and the potential risks to make sure that you guys are well educated about how you may or may not want to approach that. So let's jump into it.
Absolutely.
Let me drag this over here. Okay. Let me share my screen. All right. Cool. And as we're moving through this, if you guys have questions, put them in the chat because we want to try to help you out best we can. I think there's a lot of bad information going around and a lot of good information too. We just want to make sure that you guys are well educated and go in with eyes wide open when it comes to the farms. All right. So here we are on the farms section of Pulsex. I'll zoom in a little bit. So
I love the options, man. Now that we have like a menu of farms, it's just so much fun to scroll through them and kind of like analyze in your head. Like, okay, what is the best case scenario out of this? Okay, what is the worst case scenario out of this? Like, they all have interesting attributes about them, and they all pay wildly different yields, which is really cool. Different. So, man, it's been a blast, and we're going to see more and more of these pop up. I mean, if you guys remember when just literally 5 days ago, all we had was one, Pulse and Pulsex. That was it.
Right.
Now we got a freaking menu. It's awesome.
And there'll only be more. I think it's going to be absolutely wild.
Yes. Yeah. It's so epic cool, man.
All right. So first, let's nail down impermanent loss. I think a lot of people have a hard time with this concept, and it's a little bit abstract. But with that being said, we'll try to keep it just really simple as we can. So when you come in here to one of these farms, if you were to participate, let's go with, we'll scroll down here at the bottom. So let's say that you wanted to participate. No, let's go with the stable pairs. These will be easier to demonstrate impermanent loss.
Yes.
So if you have some DAI, let's say you have some DAI, which is just a stable coin. It's pegged 1-to-1 to the dollar. And you want to provide the liquidity, you look at this APR and you say, gosh, that's so juicy. How can I say no to that? And so you decide to pair your DAI with some wrapped Pulse, and you put it here into this pair. Well, the problem is that as the way that the farms work and liquidity providing in general is that when you put up a pair, you're always being left, as the ratio in that pair changes, you're always being left with the less valuable token. And so specifically with the stable coins, the stable coin is theoretically always going to be the less valuable token, especially when it comes to something like a Pulse chain that we all feel extremely bullish on. And so as Pulse chain moves up, your value on your stable coin stays consistent. And so this margin of change is ever growing and growing and growing as Pulse chain goes up in price, which means that your tokens that you paired together, that you put in a pool, you're selling your Pulse chain as its price goes up for more DAI, which isn't necessarily an all bad thing, but you're going to get absolutely destroyed in impermanent loss compared to just buying Pulse and holding it in this example. And you're going to have to earn a whole lot of fees in order to offset that. And in fact, you can see here in the stable pairs, that's why the APRs remain so high. It's because in order for people to come in and provide liquidity, they're going to get destroyed in impermanent loss. And this allows them to theoretically out-earn that loss. So something to keep in mind there, and heavily recommend, if you haven't experienced this before, to come and just test it out with a really small amount of your bag, a few percent, 5%, something like that, just to see how it is. And then you can make a better decision from there. Is there anything you want to add to that, Corey, with impermanent loss?
I would just say, so like impermanent loss is only assuming that you will want to keep the appreciation of that asset. So for example, if you thought we were at, maybe close to a local top or even a market cycle top, and you were looking to exit your position, then that's when something like this would come into play. And vice versa. If you think you're at a local top and we're going to go down and you want to DCA into more Pulse, you could set up a DAI and Pulse pair together and start DCAing into Pulse as Pulse moves down. If you're good at TA and you're good, you think there's a local top, and that could be a way to play the game. But you have to be really careful. Like I said, if you need to be good at, you need to be like an Axis Alive, like that guy. He could determine what he thinks the market's going to do next, and then he could kind of place his position according to where the market's going to go. And so that would be the only time, in my opinion, that you'd want to use like a stable in a another volatile asset pair like Pulse or Pulsex. And I'm with you, Dane. I still think we have a lot of gas in tank. I mean, we could be at a local top. We might see a small retracement, but it's not going to be anything significant. And I think we're going to still be off to the races, even if we see a little small correction. And so, I wouldn't want to risk any My Pulse or Pulsex with that impermanent loss, because like you had said earlier, you get left with the token with the least amount of value. So if Pulse is ripping, well, of course, then the stable coin is the least amount of value. So that's what you're going to be left holding, because everyone's taking your Pulse from you. So yeah, that's all I'll add to that. So for the most part, I would say 99% stay away from the stables unless you have an intent behind it to DCA in or to ladder your bag out to get out of a position. That's the only time you would maybe want to, in my opinion, to open up if you're just trying to earn fees and get the incentive token and get some yield, the stables are the worst place to be in. Uh-oh. You're muted on my end. I don't know if Dane, are you muted?
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Back. Okay. Cool. All right. So what we want to do is, theoretically, if we can find pairs where they move similarly. So if one of the tokens in our pairs goes up 10%, then we prefer the other one in the pair to also go up 10%. And if it goes down 10%, we want the other to move down 10%. We want them to move similarly within a range together. Mm-hmm. And if they do that, then our ratio that we put our liquidity into the pool at the same time, then it will hold, and we don't experience impermanent loss or very little of it. And so that's where these other pairs, like a Pulsex versus Pulse, or even a hex versus hex, p hex versus e hex. Mm-hmm. Some of these other pairs, the APR is less. You look at the APR in the hexes pool, It's in the 500%
Still
realm.
not
When
bad.
I got into this one, whoa, do you remember what it was when you got in, Corey? I think mine
It
was
was
like
around 7 or
700 or 800.
800. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
gone down some, but it's still not bad. I mean, 500. If you compare it to the other pools, it's still juicy.
yeah. I agree. And something like Pulse versus Pulsex, the APR here isn't staggering, but theoretically these
Safer.
may move closer together, which
Yeah.
is interesting to consider. And you've got to make a determination on how you think some of this stuff may or may not move. The other determination or another determination is that when you're providing liquidity in a pair, you're earning fees in that pair. So, for instance, we'll just go with Pulse versus Pulsex. Well, not only are you earning the incentive token when you get into this liquidity pair and you put it up, not only are you earning that incentive token, but you're also going to be earning fees in the form of Pulsex and Pulse, which is a cool way to grow your bags. But once again, you have the risk of impermanent loss. And so the way that Corey and I are approaching these pools is I'll tell you what I'm doing. Corey's a little bit different, and Corey can talk to you about what he's doing. I think it's valuable to have multiple perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, this APR here, and if you guys want to chime in the comments and you have additional insights that we may be missing, I would love to hear it so that we can tighten up our strategies. But specifically, this Pulse versus Pulsex pool, the APR there is just not strong enough that I'm real excited about this. And I would rather, at least for the time being, hold on to my Pulsex and Pulse than going into this pool, because we've already seen Pulse versus Pulsex. It used to be for every one Pulse, it equaled 4 Pulsex tokens. It's now closer to 1 to 2.
Jeez.
And I didn't anticipate that happening this quickly. And so the potential impermanent loss risk to me versus the APR here in this pool is just not that great, particularly when we have the single-sided staking pools coming up and theoretically should be here available in the next few weeks for Pulsex. And Corey and I have our why am I blanking, Corey? What's our computer? The validator computer,
Yep.
where we can go and put our Pulse to work without impermanent loss on either of those options. So I have stayed out of this.
Very juicy. Both be very juicy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would argue, especially the single-sided staking pools, I think that our APRs could be very similar to what's being offered here in this pool and have no impermanent loss risk.
I agree.
Yeah. I've completely stayed away from anything stablecoin. There's no way that I'm trading any of my Pulse or Pulsex right now for stablecoin. That's the opposite. In fact, early on, if you were putting up liquidity here, people were essentially taking your stablecoins and buying all the Pulse and Pulsex, and you're getting left behind in a certain measure.
Yeah.
I like the hex pair, and so the way that I'm thinking about the hex farm here, and this will be interesting to see how this pans out. But if you have hex holdings, Corey and I already have our longer term stakes, and the majority of our hex is staked out longer term. We feel really good about that. Definitely have some liquid hex. That the way that I was thinking about that, I want to have more optionality. I want to be more liquid. I know myself, I don't need to stake my stuff out for years in order to stay honest. I have the mental fortitude and discipline to be able to hold my bags even through dips. If that's not you, just stake all your stuff out and be content with that.
You're not going to rage dump, bro?
No, I'm not freaking rage dumping. I can manage myself just fine. But for this, so with this pair, the way that I'm thinking about this is if you're short-term staking in Hex right now, if I'm not mistaken, you'll earn about 10% APR annually.
It's about right. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So once again, I don't know the perfect math. I didn't go check it before our show, but roughly speaking, the last time I looked, you're going to earn about 10% a year unless you're staking out much longer time frames. And Corey and I already have our long-term stuff staked. And so the way I was looking at this pool is I said, hey, the APRs are really strong right now. I think there's a decent likelihood that these APRs, even as more liquidity floods in, and that's from what I've seen, that's how these pairs work. As the liquidity increases, these APRs decrease. We're all getting diluted. And so the way I'm thinking about this is I feel pretty confident, and I could be completely wrong. So you've got to make a determination for how you want to manage your own bags. But I feel pretty confident this APR will settle higher than 10%, even as liquidity thickens here, so that on my shorter term hex, I can still be earning a stronger APR than staking it, and I have more options because I can come in and out of the liquidity pool, but I can't come in and out of a stake. So that's what I'm doing here. What are your thoughts on this, Corey?
So I agree, and so so what I do is my strategy is that, and this is the more boring conservative strategy, is that I go more heavily in the more conservative pairs. So Pulse and Pulsex, I don't consider it impermanent loss because I don't care which one of the bag I'm getting. I'm only doing it about 5%, about 2.5 to 5% of my money. That's about 5% now. I increased it a little bit. It's about 5% of my bag, the total bag, is in that pair. And like in that 5%, I don't care if I'm holding all Pulse at the end of the movie, I'm fine. If I'm holding all Pulsex, I'm fine. I wouldn't mind either way. And so as far as my liquidity providing, that's where I'm more heavy. Now that will change a little bit with the E-Hex and P-Hex pair. That is probably my most favorite pair, but I don't have enough liquid. I have this monthly rolling stake that I'm doing. When that comes out, I'm going to convert it, like you had mentioned, that you do get more yield in the short term, if you will, by providing liquidity there. So I will convert that over to the LP position when that comes out. And so that then the two hexes will be more heavy than my Pulse and Pulsex. But I still like the Pulse and Pulsex because I feel like for me, it's safe. Like I get it. You can have a permanent loss from one way to the other, but like I don't care. Like I have plenty of Pulse and plenty of Pulsex, and for whatever that small position, even if I'm providing 10% of my total entire bag, at the end of the movie, I don't care if I'm left holding one or the other. I love both assets so much, and I can keep it in there and earn the incentive token plus the fees. Remember, we're earning those fees too. And the fees, guys, you can't scrape the fees. Let me add that on here right now. You can't scrape it like you can the incentive token. The fees get added into your position. So just so you know that, you can't go in here and harvest the fees like you can on V3. But that's why I like it. Yes, it's ultra conservative as far as the APR is concerned, but I also like it because I don't care which side of the bag I'm holding. And even with the E-Hex, P-Hex, I don't really care which side of the bag I'm holding. In fact, I might be a little bit more biased on the P side, I guess, the pulse chain side, but not by much. If I at the end of the movie I was holding more E-Hex, I'm not gonna be mad at nobody, right? And so those are my two favorite pairs. Unlike you, I'm not messing with any of the stable coins. And what I did is I kind of got this idea from you, Dane, with the stable coins that I had collected out of the E-Hex, P-Hex in the Pulse and Pulsex. I took those stable coins and opened up very tiny. They're tiny.
What do you mean stable coins? Did you mean the incentive token?
I meant incentive token. Sorry, incentive token. Sorry, yeah, I said stable coin. Yeah, so the incentive token that I earned from the Pulse and Pulsex pair, and then the E-Hex and P-Hex pair, those incentive tokens that I earned, I opened up very tiny positions in the incentive token, the Pulse, and incentive token, the Pulsex. Very small. Once again, on me mentally, I look at the position and go, what am I willing to put in here financially? And to a point where I don't care if I'm holding all incentive token or all Pulse, or I don't care if I'm holding all incentive token or all Pulsex. What part of my bag am I willing to basically separate myself from, to where if the worst case scenario would have happened, I'm still like, okay, that's fine, whatever, right? And so that's how I played my cards. So I'm very heavy in the Pulsex pair right now. And then second heaviest is E-Hex, the P-Hex, but that's going to change once my monthly rolling stake comes out. And then very tiny positions in the ink, the incentive Pulse and the incentive Pulsex. More, cool. I feel like those are the degen pairs.
I agree.
And they're fun.
Yeah. Now that being said, and this is an important point to be aware of too. Corey knows this, but I don't know if everybody does that's watching the show does. So with Pulsex being a fork of Uniswap V2, the way the pools are set up, there's not concentrated liquidity. If you're not familiar with that, then just let your eyes glaze over for the next few seconds. With V2, what that means, since there's no concentrated liquidity, or liquidity is provided across the entire range that the pricing could move for the pair. So you're not ever actually going to be left with all of one or all of the other, but it absolutely can weight really heavy one way or another, depending upon how those ratios move. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Now, that being said, if you go and look, I should have pulled up the charts beforehand, but the incentive token is the strongest mover of all of the Richard Hart tokens in this first roughly week of.
Yeah, there's got to be a local top in. Come on, there's a local top.
It's wild. It's wild, and this is with only 2 pairs in the farms that include incentive token as half of that pair. Mm-hmm. Just imagine when there's 5 or 10 of these pairs that you need incentive token to be a part of. A lot of people are going to go market buy that and push pricing up. And I think the incentive token, I feel pretty confident about the upside of it. Corey and I both had sold some incentive token we earned early on for more
points. Kicking myself in the ass right now.
That was a bad decision.
And it was quite a bit too, because in the very beginning, me and you set up a pair, and it was earning. It didn't show us the APY back then, but I mean, I'd be willing to bet it was something aggressive, like 2, 3, even 5,000 APY, because it was. I mean, I was earning like 10 a day, like 10. Mm-hmm. It was like 10 or 15 a day in the very beginning. And that was in the Pulse and Pulsex pair, and now I had to like triple my position, and I'm barely getting like 1 or 2 a day. And so, like, it's night and day. And I didn't know I had some diamonds there. That's what literally we had. We sold our diamonds for pennies. Damn it.
Right.
All right. Well, that's what I get for selling a Richard Hart token.
Right. Right. So I really like these ink pairs. I've got about 15% of my total holdings in the farms as a whole. And I like these ink pairs because I feel really good about the upside of
how heavy are you in the ink pairs on that liquidity position?
So in my Pulse, I put some in the ink Pulse. This is less than 10% of my Pulse holdings and ink holdings in the Pulsex.
That's still heavy.
Yeah. So I feel good. I feel good about 10 to 15%. I think as a whole, like I said, I'm about 15%. And with the APR of these, so this is where this is what I'm speculating on. And once again, I could be wrong, and maybe I get left behind. But I think that if I'm Richard Hart, all I've got to do here in the farms to keep the incentive token very interesting and appreciating really hard is just to keep these incentive pairs where you pair Pulse or Pulsex, or maybe there's a hex pool that pairs with ink, or there could be a ton of different other ones. If you just keep those pools some of the most interesting APR, then people are going to go and FOMO buy ink, and they're going to keep participating in these pools. And there's also a lot of chatter of people outside of Richard Hart building things that will allow you to single side stake the incentive token or burn it for other things. Yeah. There's a lot of potential use case and upside, in my opinion, for the incentive token. And so I am holding mine. I'm hoarding it. I am not selling it for other assets. I want to hoard this thing, and I want to wait and see what happens. I can be a little patient. And I know, and if if you don't know this, you're not going to get all of the gains perfectly, and that's fine. And so even if I got left behind a little bit because it ended up being better to dump my ink for Pulse or Pulsex, I'm fine with that. I want to accumulate incentive token and be patient and see what opportunities come or may be presented with it over the next few years.
I agree. I'm hoarding every incentive token I earn now. I'm not as aggressive as you with the ink pools, where I'm more aggressive. I'm being more aggressive in the conservative pools. Now I'm not going to earn as much as you,
Sure.
but I'm going to hoard, like you had said, every single ink token. You know, I'm watching all the other influencers. Oh, you sell your ink token for the Pulse and Pulsex or the Hex, whatever you, to make up for
Right.
the impermanent loss. I'm like, no, because I'm already comfortable. Like I put such a small amount anyways of my portfolio in there. Like it, I don't need it if I'm receiving the ink. Like I'm cool with that. It can stay in there and be a perpetual money printer for me for as long as we have B2. And I'm
Right.
okay with that. I don't need to try to offset my portfolio because I put 50% or 80% of my portfolio in there. And that's when it gets a little bit scary, because if you get left behind, and you really are getting left behind if you have like 80% of your portfolio in there. But man, for like a 10% or even a 15, you're going to be fine. Hoard that ink and see what he's got planned. This is a Richard Hart token, and it's probably the most mysterious of the bunch. And one thing I want to add about this is that he created the ink token, in a way where people can burn it and build on top
Yes.
of it in the exact same way, guys, that the Forever Down token does. So all the token you guys hate, well, Richard Hart took some of that game theory and embedded it into the incentive token. So wrap your heads around that for what it is. It could have an amazing future because of that one aspect.
Right. Right. And keep in mind too, there's only one incentive token emitted per second. And that roughly works out to just shy of 32 million per year. So it's not a token that, there's a ton of supply, and there was no allocation from the beginning. And
Right.
so this is a relatively, it's relatively thin liquidity and supply across the ink token. There will continue to be relatively thin liquidity, especially when some protocols start being built by other community members that burn the incentive token. And so I'm really comfortable. After we dumped our incentive token, I think I sold mine at like $7
Oh,
for
dude, I don't
Pulse,
want to talk
and
about it.
now it's at like $60 or
I
something
didn't want to talk
crazy.
about it. Yeah, I did this. I think I
Uh,
sold mine for less, dude. I know I'm
Mine
not
is
happy.
probably less.
I'm not happy with myself. That's for sure.
Sure.
Man, maybe we should build an NFT where you burn so much incentive token and then you get some special kind of NFT, and that we could build on this. It'd be so cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that could be done here. So, so a couple of steps that I think are really important that I've seen people missing out on. So, to provide liquidity, it's a few step process. The
Oh
first
yeah,
step,
cover that in. Yeah, that's
is to come over here under trade. You're going to come down to liquidity as starters. Now, I'm already assuming you have your tokens and you have enough to pay for gas and all that type of stuff. You can
Although
come
if
in
you
here.
don't, you can come here to check the ratio. If there is a ratio that you might need to go purchase.
Oh, good point. Let's look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you click on add liquidity right here.
Because the ratios are always changing, especially if you're like in a Pulse or Pulsex or something like that.
Yeah, so let's go with that. Let's say that we had some interest to participate in the Pulse versus Pulsex farm, and say we had, I don't know, call it 100,000 Pulse, for instance, with $20. Now let's make it a little more interesting.
God,
With
it's almost
$2,000 of Pulse.
Isn't that crazy? It's almost a dead 2-to-1 now. Oh my word!
It's wild. I didn't think we'd see this. I really not at least early on. I'm really
Pulsex
surprised.
is just gonna freaking rip faces off. I mean, guys, think about it. When the single-sided staking gets implemented, then there's a use case that people see that there's a use case. We might end up. This is very speculative. What we might end up passing up Pulse.
I mean, we could. And think about how many people. I'm telling you guys, this is wild. We were in, or I was in a chat with a meme coin community that launched on Pulse. It was mind-boggling. I think that many of us in the community take for granted that we've had a couple of years to prepare for all this, to
Mm,
know what was going
mm.
on, so we're locked and loaded. But people that are coming in, they're
Th-
new. They have no idea. None.
Right, right,
They have no idea. And there's
right.
so many people that have no idea that Pulsex is going to be what they need in order to take
Yeah,
advantage of the single-sided staking pools. And
it's
I think we
it's.
could be on an absolute rocket ship.
Oh my god, it's gonna be disgusting. And I mean, that makes both me and you happy. Both me and you have more heavily weighted on the Pulse X side because we caught that sacrifice. We didn't catch the Pulse sacrifice.
Right.
Now we were able to load our Pulse bags up, thank God, during this last week. But I'm still, and I think you are too, are more heavily weighted on the Pulse X side. So if it wants to go to the moon, I mean, I'm not going
I'm
to
cool with
argue.
it. Right. Right, right. But yeah, Corey makes a great point. So if you want to come in here and see the ratios, maybe you have 10,000 Pults
Or
and
10
you're
million.
trying to determine, hey, like, how many
10 million.
Pults X would I need? Then you can come in here and see. One of the things that I did, so for instance, or 10 million, let's say I had 10 million Pults, I'd take half of that because you're going to need to pair these in halves. I just take 5 million.
Right,
It'll calculate how much Pulsex I need to get. And I could go ahead and swap 5,000 of my Pulse for Pulsex. It's
right.
not going to be perfect because this ratio will change just a little bit on you when you go and you enter the pool, which is fine. But it gives you a really good idea, like Corey said, of how to determine how much of each coin you're going to need to put it up at the current ratio that it's at.
Yeah, it's close enough where you'll know. Same with the
Right.
EHEX, PHEX guys. We're not, even though we're kind of close now, it's really cool that we've kind of reached some kind of parity. But they're always still fluctuating. Like I think PHEX just surpassed EHEX this morning, and
Yeah,
so
let's see.
yeah, you
Yeah.
see, it's not perfect, and so that's always fluctuating back and forth, and it's always going to. It's never going to be perfect. And so if you're ever wanting to provide liquidity, make sure to come and double check to make sure you have both bags.
Yeah, great point. Excellent point. So once you're here and you've selected your pair that you want to provide a liquidity between, you'll put in your amount. It'll automatically calculate what you need below. Mine, this is my test wallet, so I don't actually have anything in here. But once you put this in, it'll go ahead and say, I think you've got to approve
Yeah,
your
two,
hex or whatever you're putting up in your pair. You got to approve it, and then you can go ahead and confirm. It's a two-step process, like most everything is on the blockchain, to be able to create this liquidity.
yep.
And I like to, on the next page, when you go and you confirm it, there's a small screen that shows you your ratio. I like to take a picture of that ratio so that I can notate later on one of my spreadsheets to see, hey, when I created this liquidity pool, how much, in this example, how much EHEX and PHEX did I have together in a ratio, so that when it's time to pull out, I'm hopeful that I could try to find a place where they're back close to that ratio, so I'm mitigating my impermanent loss. I'm
Yeah, you
hopeful.
could try to time
We'll
it.
see.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yep. Have a little bit of timing there. All right. So you've done this. You've created your liquidity. Now the second step is you need to go and add this liquidity to the farms, because if you don't do that, you'll be earning fees here on your 2 hexes, but you will not be earning the incentive token.
yeah, and it's going to spit out, guys, a liquidity pool token, LP token. So you're actually going to
Good
get
point.
tokens in your wallet that represent your position here, and that's what you're going to go in the farm and stake.
Yes, great point. And it'll pop up and say, they call it PLP. It'll
Oh yeah,
pop
that's it.
up and you can
Yep,
add
that's it.
that token to
PLP.
MetaMask and all that so you can see it.
Very interesting because V3 is an NFT that represents your position in the pool. So, and I don't know the intricacies why that is. Do you know why that is? Why V3 is an NFT and why V2 is a token?
I think it's just difference in design mechanism. I don't know. That's a great question.
Mm,
I don't know the specifics on that.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, so once you've created your liquidity, you're going to come here to farms. Now, if your pair that you're creating is not here in the farms, then you will not be able to earn an incentive token on that pair, which is fine.
Correct.
If you just need to go in with eyes wide open. It needs to be here in the farms in order to earn the incentive token on top of providing liquidity. Otherwise, you'll be earning fees in the 2
Yes.
tokens that you put
Yes.
up in a pair. But man, I really want to have the incentive token bonus.
I know. For me, it's the only reason why I'm opening them up. I mean, for me,
Agreed.
the fees, that's just the icing. Like the cake is the incentive token. That's what I'm after.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Agreed.
that's it.
All right, so let's run with this example. If we paired ehex and phex, this is the farm we're looking for right here. We can click on it. And next you'll need to enable the farm. So you just click on enable. It'll queue up your MetaMask. Mine isn't logged in because this is my test one. Oh, there it is. And you need to set a spending cap for your PLP. I could just hit max. And I don't have any gas in here, so it's not going to let me do anything, which is fine. But for you guys, once you're here, you'll enable the farm, you'll confirm it all, and then once you've enabled it, there will be a screen that pops up and says, how much of this PLP token, which represents your pair, how much do you want to put up here in the farms? I don't see any reason not to put all of it up. I want to be earning as much incentive token as I can, so I just put 100% and I enable it, I confirm it, and then you'll know that you've done all this correctly because this harvest button over here will turn green. And if you hang out here for a couple of minutes, you'll start to see that your incentive token balance starts to tick up. If this harvest button is not green, you have not completed all these steps and you are not earning the incentive token here on the farm. So be aware of that.
Yep.
Cool. Well, there's a good highlight. Anything you want to add there, Corey, before we go to the questions?
Nah, great info, man. I would just say, guys, be careful that you're only doing this with a small portion of your bag, especially in the very beginning. Obviously, if you have very large bags, I mean, go in here and play around and create yourself some incentive token. So, yeah, like I said, I'm being more conservative with it. I'm kind of growing into it as I'm moving along, though. Like I said, I think my favorite pair is that ehex phex. It's still nice and juicy. And I have no problem holding either side of that. And so I have one open now, but I want to increase it. And I'm going to increase it with my rolling stake that I do. Once that pops out, it's going all in there. And that's going to be them. Now, that's hoping and assuming that Greg the Duck doesn't decide to go in there and include his bag inside that pair. He hasn't done it yet, but that always could happen, which would dilute the crap out of everybody.
Yes.
Did that.
Yes.
So, as of it sits now, it's beautiful.
And if you're Greg the Duck, it's cool because you've got so much holdings, you could really almost determine the APR in that pool by adding more if you want to decrease it, taking more out. There's some people that are saying that they think the OA is going to go add a bunch to be able to make it so that APR isn't better than staking hex. I don't
think so.
Why would you do that? I don't
think so. I think here's my thought process. So he would only go in there and add if the 2 hexes were running away from each other. That's what I think. I think as long as the community's adding in and the 2 hexes are rocking and roll within reason together, it's never going to be perfect, but within reason. My anticipation is I don't think he'll add. I don't think he gives a shit about the APR. Like, he wants the APR to be nice and juicy because he wants the community to hold parity to the 2 hexes. He ideally probably does not want to come in and have to, be benevolent or whatever have you. He only needs to do that when he needs to do that. And he does do that kind of stuff, which is amazing. But man, I think he's more about, man, let's incentivize the community to do it. And if they do it, great, I'll stay out. And if they don't do it, I'll go in there and I'll provide some help. I think it has nothing to do about the APY or APR at all. So
Yeah, and I'm with you. I think he wants the APR to be juicy enough that people come in and they're incentivized to put up their
yeah,
hex.
oh yeah, why
And
not? Let the community make a parody. All right, because we can do it. If we all took 5% of our bag of hex, and every single one of us were to go put that in the liquidity pool, man, there'd be so much hex in there, you wouldn't be able to move the price.
Agreed.
From the 2 hexes. It would be
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and give me your perspective on this, Corey. So I've got my long-term stake stuff. All of the rest of my liquid hex that I had, I put it into that pool.
Now,
I want to have
am
it all
too.
working. Is
Me
there any
too.
reason that you're seeing to keep it out and just have it just sit on it?
Not my opinion. I have my rolling stakes. I have another. I had done it like it was before the E hex P hex pool was out. I had done it. It was either actually pre bridge. I had set the I do a monthly, and so I have 3 weeks. When that pops out, it's going in that pool.
I like it.
Yeah. Even if the APY goes down to 100 or 200%, it's still going in that pool.
Even if it's sub, even say like let's say it's like 50%. That's still great.
It's still better than it's better than 10% on my rolling. I mean, I like my rolling.
That's even better theoretically than your long-term staking. Now I get it, you're getting diluted with your T shares, but the APR is stronger. And so, there's something to be said about that.
And there's something to be said to have a liquid bag. And I always rolled my liquid bag. So that way, if price ever got insane, because guys, this is crypto, it could do that literally in a week. Hex could shoot up to like 50 cents. Now, will it? Probably not, but it could. And it's nice to have a bag on the side to go, you know what? I need to sell this local top. And this makes it even more liquid, because with the rolling stake, I'm locked in for whatever I rolled it for, right? 2 weeks, a month, whatever you're rolling, you're locked. Where the LP position, I'm not locked. If we see a local top, I can go and pull that LP and sell.
Right.
You're more liquid. More liquid.
Right. It's nice to have options. But once again, Corey and I want to make sure that we drill this home before all the hex maxis come out and say,
"Oh boy,
Dave and Corey don't know what they're doing." Look, the majority of our stuff is staked out longer term. We're excited about that. It's just this is just another tool in the tool belt that we think is important for our own strategy. So you got to determine how you want to manage your own bags. All right, let's go through these. What's up? What's up, TexX? Appreciate you. Yeah, we're trying to do our best to help everybody understand what's going on in the community. Appreciate you being here. If you guys have not already smashed the likes and subscribed to the channels, please do that. We're here to pump everybody's bags. We're big advocates of that, so please do that. We're excited to have everybody along.
TexX, I saw the Texan token pumping a little bit. I have a small bag of Texan token. It's staked, so that was exciting to see. That it's doing some stuff over there on Pulse Chain.
Very cool. Yeah. Yeah, the wrapped Bitcoin run last night was mind-boggling. I wish I would have
never seen a chart like that. It's like this perfect
straight up,
and then right afterwards a perfect straight down, and then like the way they curved up, and I've never seen a chart like that. It almost looked fake.
Well, did you see that there were two charts? You had the like the counterfeit, if you will, copied over wrapped BTC, and then you had the real contract address for the or I shouldn't say real, but the bridged in wrap BTC and a bridged in wrap BTC. It was straight up too. Like it was nuts. And it's holding there. It's pegged to Bitcoin, like almost one for one perfectly.
Oh, it pegged. Okay, the other one didn't. It ran up and then
I was late to the game. I was looking at the bridged in one. I was like, maybe there's still some opportunity here, but no, I was late.
By the time you see it on Twitter, it's 9 times out of 10, it's done. Nine times out of 10.
Right. Agreed.
You got to get called from like the guy under, right? Like if like, for example, let's say Sprack Burger calls us and goes, "Hey man, I'm in this secret room that they're gonna launch this, and there's $50 million of liquidity coming in, and like that's what you need. You need the the down under secret, like, I don't know. Or maybe you're in the back rooms with like Motley and these guys over here in Puerto Rico, and they got some new DJ play. They're about to pump to the moon. And that's how you get in, man. It's like,
right. I agree. I don't know what you mean here. Hexies from Heaven. My ink is taking a beating. 2 ink gone. All good though. Maybe that's the impermanent loss. But ink has been pumping against. Oh yeah. So impermanent loss.
So if you have ink to pulse or ink to Pulsex, your ink is disappearing as you're gaining more pulse or Pulsex. Yes, that is correct. That is correct. Right. So, like I said, when you sit down and open a pull, you got to look at that and go, am I okay with this amount, the bag I'm putting in? Am I okay losing one of the sides and it going into the other side? You have to be okay with that. When you, especially on these really speculative, aggressive pulls like the ink and pulse, I think it's a beautiful pull, and I even opened one up. But with a small, it's such a small position. Like I don't even care what happens. I'm doing it for fun. It's I just want to earn a little extra ink, which is going to do that. So spit out extra ink for me, and you might hold it. Here's the thing. Yeah, right now you got 2 ink, or you lost 2 ink. But hold it. Ink ain't going to pump forever. Like, we could see a local top, and then it could come back down, and that could be your time. If you wanted to pull it, you could pull it. Like Dane said, take a snapshot of your position before going, when you create it, and then that way you'll have an idea when, because crypto does not go always up to the right, and it's not always going to go down forever. And it's everything in between, and so you might want to catch that position again when you exit.
Yep, absolutely.
And have all that. Then you've earned all the fees and all the incentive token. That's when you win. Yeah.
I think this is a great question. So, and I think this must be a typo, 1x. So it's actually about a 2x on Pulse from best sacrifice rate, 3 zeros and a 1. And Pulsex is up just a hair over, not including any bonuses, that 3 zeros and a 1 best sacrifice rate. When are all these stats going to translate into price appreciation? As good as all the news sounds, it's not translating into any profits. Me and Corey are up on everything.
I'm up on
by a nice chunk because we were buying the lows. If you weren't buying the lows and you were sitting on your hands, like a lot of idiots were saying you should do on Twitter and just sit on your hands and do nothing, then you missed out. Make sure not to follow those guys. Who not to follow next time. But as far as the charts are concerned, everybody's measuring from the local bottom. So that's where you're seeing some of these pretty insane numbers. You needed to be buying those bottoms in order to see these gains. Yeah. Otherwise, we're just being patient. You're right. Like, it's not huge profit from the best sacrifice rates.
We're 1 week
but it's only been a week and the game just started.
You got to remember, those are the blue chip assets. They're going to move slow, but they'll be more consistent, but they're going to move the slowest. Where if you want the mad gains, you got to go into the more speculative assets like the incentive token, which is that's why it's ripping faces off, because it's more speculative. It's not really a blue chip like Pulse or Pulsex. And so you got to take that in consideration. The blue chips are going to move slower. It's the same in real life. Like, what is the biggest blue chip asset class in real life? Well, real estate. Well, what moves the slowest? Real estate. What's the more secure bet? Real estate. It's the same in crypto. And in crypto, you can boil all the way back down to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's your biggest blue chip, if you will, in the space. And it moves the slowest. And it has the least amount of gains. And it also has the least amount of volatility. And so, like, you got to pick your racehorses accordingly and know where your money's being placed. And then put some bets in to some stuff that is more speculative, like an incentive token or the liquidity farms, and all these, other maybe smaller micro cap projects like Fiat, Famous, liquid loans, whatever else is coming out. And those are the ones that you're going to see the really quick, instant, overnight gains. Pulse and Pulsex, guys, this is for me and for Dane. This is our 2-year play. This is our bull market play. Like, we're 1 week in after launch, and we're still in a bear market. Literally, we're still in a bear market. So I don't expect mad gains out of my Pulse and Pulsex bag. But yeah, I'm up on both those bags. I got lucky. I caught Pulse, at 4 zeros and a 4. And so I got a little lucky on that buy. And so yeah, I like you, Nate. I did not sit on my hands.
No, we weren't
I
sitting on our hands.
went in quick, and I was ratio trading before that, and I was like,
a little bit of degen coming out, but sometimes being a degen plays off, and we were quick on the bridge.
well, I'm gonna play the game. I got some economic energy behind me to back me up if I end up making some bad decisions in the process. So I know my risk, if you will, my risk threshold, and so I'm willing to play the game.
Yep, absolutely. Sprack nails it. LP position is like selling a little bit of your bag and buying a miner to mine ink. Absolutely. Love that
That's
analogy.
great. Oh my God, that's so great. And then you're selling it back and forth sometimes. And that's what you always hope for. It's like but yeah.
Right. Great question. We covered this, and in fact, this is a little bit older comment. So if you were here when we covered it, so essentially, if you're just getting PLP by creating a liquidity position, you're earning the fees in the pair that you're creating, but you're not earning the incentive token as being part of the farm. You have to go and put your PLP in the farm to earn the incentive token in addition to the fees that you're earning when you're providing liquidity.
Correct.
Yep.
And you can create a liquidity pair on almost any pair, right? You could do it like you saw on the wrap Bitcoin in the bridged in Bitcoin. There was no incentive token for that. It was just, but you can go create a pair on it. You could create p-hedron and e-hedron, right? And there's no incentive token for that, but you'll be earning the fees in p-hedron and e-hedron, and you'll be holding those PLP tokens in your wallet.
Yep, absolutely. Still open to a permanent loss either way, right? Yeah, if you put up in a farm and you do a liquidity pair, there absolutely is going to be impermanent loss risk in every single one. Some of these people have been saying, like, even in the EHEX PHEX pair, like some people have been saying, like, oh, there's parity and talking like that's a safe haven. We'll see. I'm hopeful that that's the case, but make no mistake about it, impermanent loss is real. And I'd be, I said, Corey feels like I'm heavy in the farms, and I've only put 15% of my bag in there. And so you can see that's how we feel about it.
That's people. That's heavy to me, right? But it's not like there's people go way heavier than that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that shouldn't. I mean,
to us, that's heavier. Yeah,
we don't know. Like we can see hex at the end of the year. Like P hex could be 50 cents, and E hex could be 5 cents. That's impermanent loss.
Right.
We just don't know the future. So
Ryan's in our private mastermind. We were talking over the weekend about the farms, and we're likening it to having.
Ryan, did you open up a small position? I hope you did, man. Just get a little taste of it. It's good for anybody to get a taste of it and see how it operates. It's another layer of crypto that everyone should learn, in my opinion, especially if you're deep in the DeFi space. Plus, what it does, guys, it provides value to the blockchain and these assets, because now you're the market maker. You're coming to the market and okay, all right, community, go ahead and trade in and out of my tokens. You're providing a service now to the blockchain and all the assets.
Yep, absolutely. And keep in mind, guys, too, like we've got a few years theoretically till the next crypto top. Like you don't need to do anything sudden. You don't need to do anything super quick. You're not going to catch everything perfect. And if you can develop a mindset where you're all right with that, then gosh, you can sleep so much better at night. It is it's nice.
Yeah, don't put money in that you need to pay rent on next month. I mean, like we can't stress that enough. This has to be money that you can literally just set and forget.
Agreed. Let's see. Where's it at? me on the beaches of Cabo San Lucas. Absolutely. We'll be buying beaches here in the next couple of years. It's going to be fun.
It
Mhm. Oh, and Ryan, too, as part of our private mastermind, we'll be going over on our bi-weekly call tomorrow, more specifics about providing LP. So that'll be really cool.
Yeah.
Pulsex is the race car, Pulse is the delivery truck. I'm really curious. I'm telling you, this is going to be a fun narrative to watch over the next couple of years to see what the ratio bounces between these two assets.
Insane. It's like, it makes me want to, like, because I'm still DCAing, like, maybe I should just DCA the Pulsex more. Just like, it's insane what going the 4-to-1, the 2-to-1, and we haven't even had single site staking yet. Man.
Yeah, they could be like 1-to-1 pretty quick here.
Because all I remember, and I don't know if you guys in the chat remember, like, I remember when nobody was talking about Hedron, and everyone was sleeping on it, and it was just like the forever dump token. It was going down forever. It was like the forever down token before. And as soon as Alex announced Icosa, Hedron did a 30x.
30. It's wild.
In the middle of a bear market. Middle of a bloody bear market, Hedron does a 30x. And so, like, that's what I keep that's what keeps flashing back to me every time. I'm like, man, as soon as a single-sided staking gets installed, it's going to be absolute bananas.
If I had any dry powder, I think I'd feel really comfortable DCAing into Pulsex pretty aggressively over the next, few weeks.
Yeah, I agree.
And that brings us to this next one. Yeah, when do you think the Pulsex single-sided staking will start? Still no news from RH regarding the single-sided staking. Corey, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that the general consensus is that this should come out theoretically within the first 30-ish days or so after launch, give or take a little bit. Is that what you believe
as well? That's about right. Yeah, and that's general consensus from, like, the smarter guys in the community. KDP and all them that they've said. Walrus, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, if you've got something you want to share, feel free to post. Let's see. Well, I wouldn't recommend posting it because then people could see your wallet and you're going to dox yourself. So maybe don't share that. Yeah, be careful of that. A lot of bad guys out there.
You want to just throw some numbers in the chat? Give some
throw some general numbers in the chat. We can talk about them.
Yeah, give some idea.
Do you need to jump on, Corey? Do you need to jump on? I was just looking at the calendar. Do you need to jump off here, or did?
No, that's a follow-up. That's a follow-up.
Okay. Yep. And she texted me too. She sounds like she's hot to trot. So just FYI.
Okay. Yep.
Sounds good. Let's see. Where did it? I'm pretty sure that I heard RH was not going to provide LP, or at least had no plans to, for fear that people would accuse him of manipulation. That's an interesting point. I mean, you think about the OA, right? Richard, for all intents and purposes, Richard is not the OA. He never has been, never will be.
Right.
And that's where you have this. Yeah, that's where you have this separate entity that could do whatever it wants with providing liquidity and making markets and things of that nature. So yes, Richard will never do anything like this. Now the OA is a whole nother story.
Yeah, because 10 Top, we saw that massive LP position in Hex that was just sitting there for the last year and a half. It was sitting between like the 1.5 to 3.5 cent range, and it's a very large block of liquidity, and it's been there for a very long time, and kind of nobody knows where it came from or whose it is, but I mean, we have an idea.
Yeah. Ooh, I like this one. Were there any strategies you looked at that made you raise your eyebrows as being extremely risky? Anything you've seen, Corey, that people are talking about that you're like, oh, geez. I'll start. I think people going really heavy into the LP pools like we've been talking about today.
Yeah,
that's scary. That's scary.
Yeah.
If you haven't shot yourself in the foot with impermanent loss before, there's a lot of people that are going to be experiencing that, and it can be pretty brutal.
Yeah.
So I've seen that, the dumping the incentive token early for other things that at least in the short term has been a terrible decision. What else? Lots of people.
We heard about the stories of people getting wrecked, pre-bridge. We also heard some really cool wins, which is We heard one win where a
Some
guy,
stupid wins. Yeah,
yeah,
say
there.
that story.
I'll give you two. I don't think I told you the second one. I'll give you
Okay.
two. Being in the Telegram rooms, the one
Don't say
win.
that. Don't say the names. Yeah,
I'm not gonna
just
say
like
name. Yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna
yeah.
dox anybody. Although he is doxing in the Telegram rooms, but I'll let him do it.
Great.
What he did was he built a front end to the curve protocol, and when the fork happened, he spun up his front end and he sucked out all the p hex, all the liquidity. He for $20 he received 400 million p hex. His life has changed forever. Period.
Forever.
Like he
The
is
family
done.
tree changer.
That is like legacy wealth. He was just smart. He knew what he was doing, and so he tapped into the curve pull and did that. Here's a second one. You're gonna appreciate this one, Dane. All the HSI stakes listed on OpenSea and all the Watsas listed on OpenSea. At the fork, somebody created a front end. And so say they listed their Watsa for 5 ETH. Well, they were able to buy that Watsa for 5
For
Pulse.
5 Pulse? Oh my gosh.
They drained,
nice
the front, they drained OpenSea on Pulse of all the Watsas and the HSI stakes.
Ooh, that was a nice one.
Yeah, I don't know how much value they obtained for practically for free. Hard to say, but I mean, we as a community though have been preaching like be careful of liquidity providing when the fork happens. Be careful of anything on OpenSea when the fork happens. I mean, this is why, right? This is that somebody lost and then someone else gained, and I mean we're talking about massive amounts of money here. Massive amounts. And so, yeah, so that was another huge. I mean, can you imagine like having 1,000 Watsas now?
I mean, well, and just think about the 140 million hex. That's $4.2 million today. At a dollar, that's 140 million. What did I say?
Well, 140.
Oh gosh,
he got 400 million hex.
Out of that pool, 12 million right now. Or 400 million at a dollar. Jeez, that is wild. What a story.
And so these are the stories too that are coming out in the back rooms. What else? Well, I'm sure I haven't heard all the stories, right? Like we haven't heard them all. But then we also heard the opposite of people just losing their life savings and people just getting absolutely demolished. And so we've heard both sides. This fork has really been a very epic event, to say the least. It's been crazy. And I'm just truly blessed that we got to be part of it. I'm truly blessed that we didn't get wrecked. We got some money in the bridge when the getting was good. And man, I'm just truly blessed to be here during this historical event with all you guys. So that's a win for me.
Agreed. Absolutely. Yeah, so you guys are showing interest to stake eHex and Hex, and this is because it will support the price. Yeah, absolutely. So if you're not familiar, go on YouTube, and if you just type in Hart's Law, you'll find clips of Richard Hart talking about this concept where if you bond two assets together in liquidity, the thicker that liquidity is, then theoretically, the more closely those two assets should move together in a range. And so if you come in and you bind liquidity yourself here, then you're essentially helping those two assets or whatever you're binding together in time move together, and you're earning the incentive token and fees in that pair for doing that. So that's why we're so excited. And let me show too, I forgot. Let me show. Okay, so I want to make sure that I drive this point home as well. So I've seen a lot of people, they come into here to the farms, and this tool is a little bit deceiving. So if we've been running with the hex pairs. So a lot of people come in here and they're like, oh, what if I put in $1,000?
Oh yeah, I've noticed this too.
In a month, I'm going to make $608. Well, like that's a little bit deceiving because these percentages continue to drop. And as liquidity is added to these pairs, then theoretically this APR here should continue to drop. Like I said, when Corey and I got into this one, it was like 700 to 800%. That was just a few days ago. And when I got into these ink pools, they were both over 1,000% APR. I would be willing to bet that over the next month we're in the low hundreds. I mean, we might be under 200% APR. We might be under 100%. And so that's where, I'm trying to extrapolate out these numbers. And my goal is to double my maybe I'm thinking about this wrong, but my goal is to double my bag, if you will, in dollar value by earning the ink token. So if I can go and do that, and I would be willing to bet that this will probably happen, over the next, it'll probably take, 3 or 4 months, maybe a little bit longer, call it 3 to 6 months. But even still, if you can double your money in 3 to 6 months by sitting on your hands and putting your money in here, that's stupid. I'll take that all day long. That is wild. So don't take these APRs and extrapolate them out too far. I would say even like on a week, like it's not going to be accurate. In 7 days, you're not going to earn $116 on this 1,000. It'll probably be more like, if I had to guess, it'll probably be more like, I don't know, $80 or $90, something like that.
Yeah. Although I did watch the Pulse and Pulsex pool. It went under 40 for a few days, and now it's above 60 again. So
I saw that. I thought that was interesting because the liquidities. I've been watching the liquidity. I think it's kind of the same as it's been. I think it's held pretty steady. But also, Richard and his team, they can choose how they want to incentivize those pools. Yeah. So maybe they just bumped it up a little bit. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's interesting. Do you think the network fees will come down further? If so, by how much percent? As I am not sure this will be the case for some time due to the various Zen coins that are mintable. Yeah, what do you think about that, Corey?
I think it will come down over time as people kind of get it out of their system. And I mean, we saw with Ethereum when they first launched the Zen, it was absolutely bananas. They were in there just going, hands to the wall. They were going crazy. And it's going to be the same for Pulse. It will start to die out. And then also, I don't know if you guys saw this guy, dude. I swear this guy. The original Zen contract on Pulse, he's going to honor it.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a nice update.
Sure.
Because he moved from, he was going to honor it and then he wasn't, and now he is.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's why he's like, well, I'm not going to honor this. I'm going to deploy all new contracts. And then you guys got to start all over. I think he heard so much bitching from his community that he went back and was like, okay, well, then I'll honor it. It's like, bro, dude. Like,
talk about a record for most launch protocols that have done nothing but be a cancer to other blockchains.
Yeah, he's like destroyed Bitcoin. He's like, get destroyed. And people are proud of it, man. Like Eric Wall and stuff. Like they're all happy. Like, Bitcoin is destroyed. Like, good job. Yeah, that's be proud of that. So to get back to the fees. Yes, the fees will come down, and you got to remember too. So there's a couple things you got to think about as price of Pulse is going up. People start looking at their Pulse differently on how much to spend, and right now you'll look at 3,000 Pulse, and you're like, oh, that's 20 cents. Go ahead and do right or whatever it is, mint, send. But when 3,000 Pulse is $300, you're gonna think differently about that transaction. So it will naturally scale itself back over time when Pulse is going up, and by that time, a lot of the Zen community will already have minted large bags, if you will. And I really think once the X1 chain launches, that's like the final, the hoorah finale of Zen. That's what everybody wants, and why everyone's minting right now is to grab that X1 token. And so once he brings that to market, I think we're going to see a big relief in all the chains.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
That's next year, guys. He's coming next year. So,
yeah. I mean, I just be really careful. Anything you're pairing with a stable coin right now, you're essentially putting up your wrap pults for people to come in and swap their stables for more pults. So you make your own financial decisions. Those aren't pools that we're participating in. That's neither right nor wrong. Just depends on your strategy and what you want.
Ideally, unless you think we're in a local top, which we could be at a local top, and then you'll be accumulating some pulse on the way down. But unless you think that, you're selling your pulse for USDC is what you're essentially doing.
Right. When will you guys get out of your liquidity positions? Yeah, so for us, I think it's just a matter of time. Yeah, it's just a matter of time till Richard Hart forks version 3, most likely, of Uniswap, and that'll change the game. All the liquidity, or at least the vast majority, will flow to V3. That'll change how the LPing works by a pretty significant margin. And so, I mean, I will just leave mine in until 2025 if Richard, for some reason, didn't come out with the V3. Yeah, this is a long-term play.
Yep.
Do you think there may be some
said, too, guys? Let me just touch on that one too. That being said, also when you're looking at your liquidity, when you're setting it, and you're thinking about, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen to me? What's the best thing that can happen to me? Also be like, okay, am I okay just letting this thing go to 2025? Like, that's another factor that you should be asking yourself when setting these pools up. So,
yeah, that's a great point. And it's cool. I mean, you just created more money printers. Once you can out earn your position in fees, well, then it's all upside from there. So it's that's how I'm looking at it. Yeah. I was waiting for single-sided staking. Can you guys give some info on how that will work? Yeah, sure, certainly. Do you want to take this one, Corey?
Yeah, for sure. So basically, there will be third-party protocols that will be coming into the ecosystem. They want to market to the Pulse and Pulsex community, and the best way to do that is give away free tokens. And so, how do you allocate those free tokens? Well, it's by people who own Pulsex and stake the Pulsex to receive those third-party tokens. So it's just exposure for the third-party protocols on the projects that are trying to come in and build on Pulse Chain, and for the the Pulsexicans, if you want to call them, for them it's a way of passive income and and making money on your Pulsex. So it's a great marketing tool for the protocol coming in, and it's a good way for us to make passive income, because ideally, we are the perfect people to market to. We're the ones that kind of we steamrolled this project. We got it off the ground. We're here. We're OGs now. We're here from the very beginning, and so the perfect people to market to is the Hex community, Pulse community, Pulsex community, and that's why you see a lot of airdrops going to Hexicans, is because they're kind of like the ones who started it all. And so it's the same ideology there. And so, yeah, you'll see multiple pools start popping up of third-party projects, and you can stake your Pulsex in there, and you're going to receive their tokens for free. And it's up to you, what you want to do with them. I have a strategy where it's like I have it written down somewhere. I don't have it in front of me, where like I'll compound, 40% back into Pulsex, growing the Pulsex bag. 30% goes into Pulse, 20% gets held in dry powder, and then like a 10% or even 5% moon bag in that protocol, just in case it were to actually take off and do something. Because they could, but you don't want, in my opinion, I wouldn't want to keep too much, if any at all. In fact, you could just not keep any and be perfectly fine compounding all of it or turning it to stable coin for dry powder is a very respectable strategy. So yeah, that's what it is. And you can go through the pools, and there's no commitment. You don't have to like, oh, I got to stake for 2 months or 6 months, or you're able to rotate through the pools, earn your third-party tokens, and do what you want. The pools will probably have specific time frames, like so to get each third-party protocol probably only has so many tokens they're going to hand out for everyone to dump. And so like once they're out of those tokens, then that pool will be closed. So you're constantly going to new pools. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see when it comes out. Like I said earlier, we're anticipating a month.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's a good question. I've heard a lot of people. So, you guys, when the fork happened, you got your copies. Like, your copies are there. There was not like some mishap where your copies didn't get copied unless you bought after May 10th in the evening, at least Mountain Standard Time. If you bought like, late May 10th, May 11th before the fork, that stuff did not get copied. Everything else is there over on the Pulse Chain side. You just need to add the contract address, and you can do that by going over to Pulsex and finding it. Also with the dollar values, so there's not a good Oracle or price feed for MetaMask yet. So if you're looking in MetaMask or you're looking in Trezor or Ledger, you're not going to see the values well there. Fatty.io has been one of the best places to go and see your values. Dex Screener is really good. Fatty doesn't show everything. They're working on some of that stuff. So Fatty will be an excellent resource as they continue to build on it. I like it a lot right now, but it doesn't show everything. And so you can go and find that stuff by adding your contract address and looking up pricing direct to the source by going over the Pulsex. That's what I do. I just plug it in and look up pricing there. Cool, guys. Well, these are some excellent questions. We weren't able to get to everything, but we appreciate you being here. Corey and I need to jump off, and we might be a little bit more intermittent on our streams over the next month since we're going to be down in Puerto Rico and hanging out and some of that stuff. But we appreciate all you guys. Once again, likes, subscribes, all that stuff's really helpful to pump all of our bags. And with that, we'll catch you guys on the next show.